which is the hub of the public disruption that Extinction Rebellion is bringing in these 2 weeks of rebellion. You can see behind me that there are JCBs individually picking activists off of tall structures that they have chained themselves to, they have glued themselves to, they have locked themselves to. All day the police have been moving in, closing in on this site, trying to remove as many people as possible. But that didn't stop Gail Bradford, one of the movement's founders, from getting up today and offering a people's speech. That is a people's speech that is emulating the Queen's speech that will be held in Parliament on Monday. Let's see some highlights from that people's speech now. Good evening, this is XRTV. We are live here at Trafalgar Square, which is the hub of the public disruption that Extinction Rebellion is bringing in these 2 weeks of rebellion. You can see behind me that there are JCBs individually picking activists off of tall structures that they have chained themselves to, they have glued themselves to, they have locked themselves to. All day the police have been moving in, closing in on this site, trying to remove as many people as possible. But that didn't stop Gail Bradford, one of the movement's founders, from getting up today and offering a people's speech. That is a people's speech that is emulating the Queen's speech that will be held in Parliament on Monday. Let's see some highlights from that people's speech now.
I'm here to read out the emergency people's speech. On the 1st of May 2019, the UK Parliament declared a state of climate and environmental emergency. Michael Gove said on behalf of the government, "We recognise that it is an emergency. The next generation will face the consequence if we don't take action." More than 5 months later, there has been no action. Actually, there has been. They've been fracking. You know, they've been issuing new oil and gas licences. We found out that they're spending 2.5 billion in UK finance on fossil fuel infrastructure overseas. That's the action they've been doing. We demand to know, where are the government's emergency plans? The government has only paid lip service to our demands, which are to tell the truth and act as if it's real. To act now to halt biodiversity loss and reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2025. To create and be led by the decisions of a citizens' assembly on climate and ecological justice. People from all around the country and from across society, communities connected to all regions of our planet, demanding authentic democracy, recognise that confrontational politics has been failing us and that we face a moment of crisis and of opportunity. We repeat our 3 demands to the government, and in addition issue the following demands to the government departments to provide information for consideration by a citizens' assembly. 10 Downing Street and Cabinet Office. We demand to know what 10 Downing Street and the Cabinet Office is going to do to coordinate the response to the emergency across government.
Yeah!
We demand to see the Treasury's plans for responding to the planetary emergency. We demand to see the risk to society of continuing with the current growth economic model. DEFRA. We demand to see DEFRA's plan for responding to the planetary emergency. We demand to know whether DEFRA has sufficient funding from the Treasury to address the planetary emergency. We demand to see DEFRA's assessment of the risks of food shortages should warming exceeds 1.5 degrees C and the contingency plans it has in place. The Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, BEIS. We demand to see BEIS's plans for responding to the planetary emergency. We demand to know whether BEIS has sufficient funding from the Treasury to address the planetary emergency. We demand to see BEIS's plans for engaging business to understand the need to respond to the planetary emergency. We demand to see the Department for Transport, DFT's plans for responding to the planetary emergency and whether it has sufficient funding from the Treasury to address this. We demand to see DFT's assessment of how expanding aviation, progressing HS2 in a road building programme are consistent with an appropriate response to the planetary emergency, because basically we think it's full of fucking magical thinking. Didn't say that in there, obviously. The Department for Work and Pensions. We demand to see the DWP's plans for supporting a just transition for workers affected by the planetary emergency, including programmes of training and retraining, and also how they intend to reverse austerity or take care of the most vulnerable people during this transition, because frankly, the way the DWP treat disabled people at the minute is absolutely abhorrent. We demand to see the DOH's plans for responding to the planetary emergency and whether they have sufficient funding from Treasury to address it. We demand to see their risk assessment of the threat to the public's health from warming exceeding 1.5 degrees C, including from exposure to weather extremes, from the spread of new diseases and from food shortages. We demand to see their assessment of the benefits to the nation's health from decarbonising the economy and cleaning our air, land and water. For the Home Office, we demand to know what contingency plans the Home Office has to support the hundreds of millions of people who will be displaced if warming exceeds 1.5 degrees C, and how many will be granted safe asylum in the UK. We welcome people who are in need. That is the British way. Well, it's not actually, is it, in all honesty, but it ought to be.
And after that inspiring speech, we were fortunate enough to speak to the woman of the hour, Gail Bradford, as she climbed down from her rostrum at the base of Nelson's Column. Let's take a look at that interview.
I mean, basically what we're saying is this is what the Queen ought to be doing on Monday. This would be a really good version of what she could be doing on Monday, rather than probably what she's going to come out with. Yeah.
Fantastic. And so, like, kind of, what would you be all that surprised if she did bring this kind of stuff up? Because it's pretty important.
I don't know, you know, some of her grandchildren are getting a little bit green, aren't they? So, you know, maybe we should send a copy to Harry and see if he can't nudge her in the right direction.
Obviously, the Queen, traditionally speaking, in terms of democratic, the British democratic system doesn't have a huge role to play in governance anymore. But what do you think she should be doing right now? What's your message to her?
I suspect they have a bigger role than we think. I mean, I think there was the moment when we thought Scotland was going to go independent, and it was clear that the Queen breathed a sigh of relief and so on. I mean, I think they are more political than maybe they make on. And for all of us in these times, what we have to do is speak the truth. You know, not be confined by what is expected of us from social norms. And use any position that we have to influence the people around us. She's got a big platform.
So it's looking like, with regards to the Queen's speech, the sort of main topics are going to be Brexit, obviously, and going to be those sort of internal political nitty-gritty stuff. But it's looking also like the government's going to lose that vote on the Queen's speech. So, like, kind of, if the government does lose the vote on the Queen's speech, is it then the time to sort of go, well, it's obviously because we're not focusing on the wider issues here?
I think it's time to say we haven't got a functioning democracy, actually. I think we have to name really powerfully in this movement that democracy is broken. There's in the Extinction Rebellion YouTube channel, there's something that Rising Up did that's like was a precursor to XR. It's a film called How to Fake a Democracy, 15 Ways to Fake a Democracy, and involves me and George Barder faking orgasms outside the Houses of Parliament. I'd like to point out that's the only time I've faked an orgasm, folks, by the way. It's at least 15 different things that they do that mean this is not a democracy. So part of me is, I always vote, but, you know, that is not politics. Politics is getting on the street. It is politics, but it's a minor and boring aspect of politics, in my opinion, compared to getting on the streets and asserting our will. And I think it's time, you know, unlock democracy. We're going to be starting civil disobedience around democracy, and I think we need to be working with organisations like that to say democracy's failed.
Are there any of those minor political issues that actually matter in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, they all matter because they're all coming from the same systemic issue, in my opinion. You know, this is not the time to be saying it doesn't matter that homeless people are dying on the streets or disabled people are being fucked over by having their benefits removed, or that the NHS is in crisis. They all matter, but they all have the same root, which is a system that's not here to protect us. It's a system that's not, we need to stop harming each other and start repairing things, and we have a system that's based on economic growth and profit, and it doesn't make sense. And that's not being ideological. Anybody can see that it's killing life on Earth, and we need a different system, and we need a grown-up conversation about what a better system looks like.
So a lot has been said about how Extinction Rebellion is causing a public disruption. We're here in Trafalgar Square in a public area where you can see that XR has set up a really strong camp. And whilst we're aware that this camp does polarise opinions, we're interested to understand what those different opinions are, and XR's Luke has been out on the streets today gathering both sides of that story.
I'm here in Trafalgar Square, which, as you can see behind me, has sort of become a mega site for the Public Disruption Act by the Extinction Rebellion movement. And now one of the main problems faced by the movement is how to affect the people that can actually affect change. Those people rich enough with the funds and the resources to turn this climate situation around. They can fly over the roadblocks. The people, the members of the public, absolutely everyday people that you can see behind me are the ones that are worst affected. So I've been speaking to some of them to try and find out what they think.
I think it's in a good cause, and I don't think it's all that serious, and I think people can cope with it, and by and large the public support it. It's not incredibly disruptive, it's entertaining, it's interesting, and they've got a good case. So I don't think people are particularly upset or distressed by it. I think they support them by and large.
Do you think this method of public disruption to raise awareness for the cause of climate change is a necessary evil then?
I think it is. I think it's essential, and I think it's doing its job.
I don't really know if it actually makes much difference, to be honest. Probably not. Just probably a lot of disruption, but they're trying, so let them go for it.
And I think it's really, without the protest, people wouldn't have taken as much notice. I guess I have mixed views really, but I'm not. I think overall it's probably a good thing.
How's your day been affected by the action?
It's not been affected actually. I've enjoyed the music. So.
I'm not saying that change cannot spring out from something like this. We have seen all sorts of things happening and change happening, but I just fear that the greater public sees this as a festivity more than a revolution.
Indeed, it's an issue that Extinction Rebellion has struggled to reconcile with. How to get the public on side when they seem to be the ones immediately affected by the disruption. But the word from most activists has been an apologetic one. With the rain coming down, many would of course rather be elsewhere, but the sense of duty is what drives them.
We're not acting fast enough, are we? We need to act right now, we need to make change, and we need to keep acting until they listen.
And what do you say to members of the public that get irritated with these sort of acts of disruption?
I can understand, I can empathise, and I apologise to them first and foremost, but at the end of the day it's all about the big picture, isn't it?
It's about saying I care this much. Like a lot of people my age, I've tried everything, I've been on countless marches, I've written to politicians. I feel like I've tried every avenue. I've been voting for 30 years. On none of the manifestos ever has it said, we're going to destroy your children's future.
And what do you say to the members of the public? I've been speaking to a few of them who've said, we agree with the cause, we don't necessarily agree with the method.
16 down is Maxim, 19 across.
Tell me what they're going to do about it then.
We've been trying for years, writing letters to MPs, giving money to Greenpeace, not eating whatever, riding our bicycles doesn't make any difference. What makes a difference is causing disruption.
And what do you say to members of the public that might get annoyed with these kind of acts of public disruption?
I'm really sorry. It's not personal.
And there's always someone on hand to explain the situation to any concerned or angry members of the public. Confrontation and conflict is not part of this group's message.
Together. So we're making it as hard as possible takes as much time as possible for the police to do that. And they've been doing it for days now in different groups. So we're trying to make it as slow. The police are trying to push us back. Like on Monday, we were taking over the whole of Westminster, the bridges, the Parliament building, and the government ministries. And we have people like this in front of all of them, and they're slowly working their way through us. So we're trying to cause as much disruption as possible to make the government listen.
So we've heard there a lot of differing opinions, and that is to be expected. We are a nation that stands together even if we do disagree on some individual preferences. Somewhere that we have seen people uniting across difference in this rebellion is in the Faith Bridge. The Faith Bridge is an area of the rebellion where many different people from many different faith communities have come together, uniting across difference, and as they like to say, they are praying their part together. Let's hear a little bit from them now. Hello, I'm Sarah Zoltash, this is XRTV, and I'm here today talking to different members of faith communities from the Christian tradition, Buddhist tradition, Jewish people, Muslim people, about why they feel it's important that they come out and represent their faith and why their faith is supporting Extinction Rebellion. So I'm here with Talia from XR Jews. We're stood here in Trafalgar Square where the other faith communities are also gathered. Talia, why do you think it's important for the Jewish community to come out and support Extinction Rebellion?
Well, I think as Jews we have moral responsibilities given to us from our religion and values about looking after our planet, taking care of each other. Pikuach nefesh, which means saving a soul, is a mitzvah, is a good deed that overrides all other good deeds. And so many people have already died, obviously, due to climate catastrophe, that I feel like this is a very important thing for Jewish people to come out and talk about. Yeah, it's in our blood to be activists. I always say that I stand on the shoulders of giants, like the generation before me. Such good Jewish activists, I'm following them. Like it's our duty to fight systems of oppression and the system of oppression on the planet.
Yeah, right, I totally hear you. So I'm with Holly now, who is a trustee of Operation Noah, which is a Christian NGO. Holly, can you tell me a little bit about the reason why you feel Christian organisations outside of the church have felt like they need to be involved with Extinction Rebellion?
I think, I guess it's important to acknowledge that, you know, Christian NGOs have been working on this issue for a long time. So, you know, we've obviously kind of engaged a lot with people who are very passionate about this and have been kind of tirelessly kind of plugging away. But it's really important to acknowledge that actually how much the narrative has changed in the short time that Extinction Rebellion has been on the ground. This is a really important aspect of change making.
I'm here with a member of XR Muslims. Safia, can you tell me a little bit about why you feel it's important for your faith community and your children here to join in the Extinction Rebellion?
Well, I think that in our tradition we have a lot to take from in terms of really speaking truth to power.
Yes.
And there are things that we know, and we also know that the righteousness is very distinct from wrongfulness. You know, from wrong is distinct from right. And what we are doing to the planet, and what big, you know, corporations and powerful people are doing to the planet, we know it's wrong. Once we have evidence that this is destroying our planet and our children's future and the health of animals and plants and humans, then we should really have an internal reflect on the teachings of our faith and just stand up against everything that is wrong about this system.
Why do you think it's important that Buddhists come out in support of Extinction Rebellion?
Well, I think that Buddhists have a particular something to contribute to the rebellion. I think, importantly, we value issues like compassion and holding pain in our hearts in a particular way, which makes it possible to contain all the very strong feelings that are aroused at a time like this.
I've just had an amazing experience of going and sharing in the Buddhist tent in the Muslim Friday prayers, and we were taught how to do the prostrations, and we joined in completely. I'm from a Christian background, and it was incredibly moving to be involved with that, and so grateful to the Imam for welcoming us.
I'm here now at Trafalgar Square with one of the many members of the clergy who has joined the rebellion. David, could you say a little bit about how you feel about the church's presence here?
Yeah, well, first thing to say is I'm just so excited to see so many lay and priestly members of the church here. It's been great to enjoy the solidarity with others, and there's been an amazing amount of openness towards other faiths. We are here together in action, and there's a sense we have that something new is stirring. The church is moving on, and I would say to you out there, if you don't understand this and you don't know what I'm talking about, just get involved. You need to act now while we still have the time. We need to see that new church come right out of the old.
Yeah, no, my dad, as I was walking out the door, literally the last thing he said to me was, don't get in the middle and start singing like a clown, you'll get arrested. And I was like, Dad, you literally know me so well.
Yeah, and my mum was like, number one, definitely don't get wet or get arrested, so don't sleep out tonight. And I was like, of course I'm going home. Obviously I stepped out.
So this is one of the things that I want all of our viewers to understand, is that sitting at the intersection of being from communities of faith, Talia being from XR Jews and me being from XR Muslims, we're always having to lie to our parents about what we're up to.
The values from Extinction Rebellion are very much in line with Buddhist wisdom teachings. So we find a lot of an easy fit really between the Buddhist moral, ethical and wisdom teachings and the way that Extinction Rebellion has set itself up.
So hearing there how the moral principles at the heart of the movement are inspired by the wisdom of generations. So that's us now coming to a reconciled end of tonight's XRTV broadcast. You can see that the police are encroaching on Trafalgar Square. The road down at the bottom of Trafalgar Square is now open to cars. The situation at Trafalgar is fluid. As we go into the weekend, we're not sure exactly how the rebellion is going to play out, but the one thing that we do know is that there is a lot of love here. There is a lot of regenerative well-being and creative expression here for this movement, and we wish all of the rebels good luck. This is Sarah Zoltash for XRTV.